Feel right. And here we are on both Gaia's Alchemist page, the Love Virus group. We're just going to get this ramped up. Adrian he's been chiming in with a little bit of music and a start and everything like that. It's going to be a beautiful evening. And how's everybody feeling about this retrograde that we're just sort of going through the first one? Okay, and there's a couple more coming. and not to mention there's another big moon coming, all in this Gemini period, which has got a lot of us Geminis really. I don't even know if there's a word for it, Adrian. Okay, I really don't. Maybe you can be a little bit.
I've got something going on here. My phone keeps dropping out in
Okay,
regards to holding. It's fully charged, but because it's not being touched, and I'm running it through just normal web, so it's got not through the app, so it's not holding. We'll see how it goes. It's chaos. There's chaos everywhere, sir. Chaos. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone.
yeah. As you're talking, I'm going to share out. So go ahead.
Yeah, there's a balance that we're all trying to find now, and it's the balance of self that we're not considering as a large proportion. And I'm so sorry that this is affected like this. It keeps going out, Gary. So, like, I don't know what that means. I'm
I'm
useless.
hearing you. I'm hearing you beautifully coming through us on.
Yeah, the screen comes. The screen drops out. I've got to
Okay.
keep opening up. I've got to keep opening up the phone. It's not running like it would be running through an app. It's running through the Chrome function, just a page rather than an
Okay.
app. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll
Okay.
see how it goes. You're right with what, and now it's doing it again. Damn, I can't even see it. This is so pissing me off bad. There is a huge element that of frustration, of truth, of people's stories that they're holding on to. They're holding on to with large proportions, and rightly so. Rightly so, because they've experienced it. But in this whole interaction of dropping as opposed to letting go, yeah, I see dropping and letting go as the same thing. Your story has brought you to here. Your
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
story has brought you to here. And that is the respect, and that is all that needs to be worn at this point in time, with the understanding of what is happening. So oh wow, dude. If somebody can tell me how that stops happening, and I've got to touch the screen every 30 seconds, then please.
Check the display function. Is what type of phone is it?
It's an Oppo.
Okay, so in the Apple in the settings, go to the display, and you should see where there's where it times out the display or turns off the display after a period of time. It might be set to 0, so it's automatically just turning itself off.
Yeah. You're telling me to do something I don't even know.
Okay. Okay. On the settings on the Apple phone.
Yeah. It's not the Apple. It's an
Okay.
Oppo.
Oh. Okay. Then I have no idea on that one. Okay.
It's an
If it was an.
Android.
Okay.
It's an Android. So what's happening is, because it's running through the web browser rather than the StreamYard app, it's picking up through there the link, so it closes off the page because
Okay.
there's no action. Yeah, there's no action, so it just keeps dropping out. But anyway, we can work with it. I'll just hold it like this. That's okay.
See, Geminis are good at that. We just like multifunctional, get everything going on at the same time.
Oh, look, I can do that. I can do that, and when I do it myself, it's okay. But
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
link
Yeah.
always throws it out. This link on StreamYard always throws it out because it doesn't pick up the app which I've got, which is StreamYard. It
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
different. So even sitting here now, I've got to touch the screen so it remains open, which is frustrating because you can't freaking get into a conversation because you're prioritizing or touching the screen halfway through something of a topic. Yeah, you continue. I'll try and work this out because I've got.
Okay. You know, it's here it's Sunday, okay, and Adrian it's Monday, so he's having a Monday flavor, and his telephone is doing some funky things, so he's going to work on his telephone. But we've been talking about this, essence of this journey, and in many ways, we've had a couple of off topics on, divine masculine, the divine energies, and a little bit scattered here and there. But one of the greatest things is that this essence of coming back to this journey of self, this emotional journey that's brought us to where we are in the here and now. This a minute to address what is called. Okay, Adrian will pop back in, so you've got just me for the moment. Welcome to my backyard, by the way. Okay, this is my sanctuary of intentions, where a lot of things transpire, and this time I've got you turned around, facing out to where the waterfalls are, and I got the music coming out this way, but as we were talking about this journey through this process of, let's not talk about the masculine or feminine. Let's talk about human, okay? Being human and this journey of this emotional, uprising, this reckoning, this ability to come back to the self and say, where am I with my emotions, for one off, okay? Because understanding my emotions helps me to be a little bit more empowered with use of my emotions, as I can use them in, the power of the verbos, and how I can be very emotional through this verbos and still retain this presence and this moment of awareness, okay? And we do have an eclipse. I know there's another one coming, Kat. I just went through one. Come on, I'm a Gemini. Okay, you have no idea what this period is doing to me. And a triple Gemini. Ay, 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 ay. I just did a full moon ceremony here a couple of days ago, and a blessing of a new place where we have a smudge hut and a couple of things going on. It's an ongoing project. And believe me, we stayed up all night long, watched the eclipse, saw the sunrise, and this energy, my energy, well, look, I've been feeling it for a couple of weeks prior to this and amongst everything else, but believe me, this triple retrograde and two eclipses. I mean, really? So if you're not a Gemini, you might not know how I'm feeling, but if you are a Gemini, you certainly are. Okay? Because, and it's not just, I think, let's not just say about astrological signs, it's also affecting everybody. There's energy happening. Okay, there's cosmos. There's things happening in the cosmos. There's things happening on the sun. There's things happening all over, and a movement of energy and a shift. Okay, and it's this evolutionary chain that we're part of. And in where we are here on Earth, come back down to planet Earth, all us humans are filled with. I promised I wasn't going to use this word too much, but mind fuckery. The programs, the yesterdays, the traumas of yesterdays that everything some of us still hold on to rather than surrendering and letting go. And it's really a pain. Okay, it truly is. It's a painful process. And if it's not a painful process, then you're not doing it rightly, because you got to scrape this emotional uprising, this reckoning that you have with self, okay, is extremely important as part of this process through the ascension and arriving to an understanding of what 5D is. Believe me, those who think they're in 5D right now, just magically show me you can walk through a wall, because that's about the same part of it. The whole essence of this ascension is this, breath. Okay, understanding that as we breathe, we're part of an evolutionary process. Everything around us is evolving. Everything. Okay, and as we're going through this process, it's the cleansing in many ways as well. We have to cleanse these yesterdays, these programs, these emotional struggles, these, like this happened to me yesterday. Like, please breathe. And I think this is a lot of it, what we're talking to. Did you get your technical difficulties fixed out?
We'll see. We'll see. That's all we can do. I don't have anybody I can ring up and go, what the hell's happening? Get me on the air, blah, 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 blah. I've got to go through it and breathe. Exactly right. I've got to breathe because it's only an extension of what we're creating,
Yep.
the devices in which we use. So,
Yeah, particularly because it's the devices that sometimes that is a part of the problem as well. Because in this disconnected world, it's shortened the whole attentive span, and to be able to use these devices with what we're doing right now and bringing people together and opening your eyes, right? Maybe in part opening the heart as a big part of it, because that's really the whole process is right through this. It's not through this.
yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. The mind is always going to cause confusion. The mind is always going to cause issues and topics that you need to have resolved because of the way that it makes you feel. It will never support the actions of the heart. It will condemn it whilst it has a voice to carry. The opinion is what the mind is, and until it's sat with and deconstructed to be reconstructed, it is then just only an egotistical opinion. The validation is by the way that you hold yourself and how far you know that this journey goes. It is that's a hard, like it's a very hard thing. And if we're talking about a male demographic listening to heart at a point in time where they're confused, you're not getting the real message. A heart's not going to send you to war. A heart won't send you to war. A story, a love story of a war story, will send you to war, but that's that's been depicted in a varying ways and a multitude of different ways. They've exploited what the connection of heart and mind have as a connection in voice. And they illustrate it through movies, which we've all seen. So if we're talking about a male, the large proportion of the male orientation we know is something that they like. You won't control me. You won't control me. And that starts to become the paramount inclusion of what they are. And that's what keeps them part of it, because they're still throwing an element of self upon those that are trying to do it, that are trying to, I'm listening to myself, that are trying to take it away from them. Okay? So I get where everyone goes, and anger and fear all stem from that unworthiness. And the 5D Ascension, the woke series, is looking and reflecting like just another spit in the story. As people start a year later, and if we're talking about a year in regards to how much they've changed the narrative of the external for everybody to be on that. That's a year of propelled anger, a year of propelled fuel that hasn't burnt yet. That hasn't burnt. And we in Australia, I think, are a lot like Canada in regards to having an easy life up until this moment.
Yeah.
Being the white element, I'm not racist. And if you want to say anything, I hate everybody equally, as I much love them.
You got that one right.
There is no racism. It's just looking at what is there in the value of the story within itself. And the Canadians, as well as the Australians, in proportions, excluding on this occasion the Indigenous space, that the ownership, the white ownership that has been there, has been a very comfortable life for those that played that game. So, like a fat pig in a paddock, or a fat cow in the paddock, they're content with what's going on until their hand is truly forced. People believe they've got a hand in regards to something up their sleeve, but in a measure of control, I think no, there's not been done the pathway of least resistance to find self, because everybody I think might be scared of finding self, because they've gone and attached that much of their identity to a game to even try and be something. And I'm not talking about this social media game. I'm talking about life, where genuinely they have gone and of starting interest and then let it just be part of their ownership, built a lifestyle on those surrounds that have made them comfortable. So the connection of self, the connection of truest self, has somewhat been jaded because it's never been questioned, because it's in a form of comfortable complacency that, oh yeah, there's just these little hiccups that are the norm of that life. Now they're facing something else, which is actually looking at their life with nothing else attached in regards to the work environment, the orientation of what the hell have I done all of this for? For those people that are thinking that, the emotional, as you said, as Brian's put out there, the emotional that is now being questioned in a style of innocence, because it's coming from innocence, because it's like the deer with the headlights on. They're getting caught blinded. So there's a moment that changes for the recognition of, oh wow, what's going on? Hence why there's that division. People aren't owning their truest space to even give value to what they're about.
Definitely in many ways, Adrian. I mean, the ability. It's a two-sided element here. We've got the ones that are going around with the face coverings, okay, but what are they really truly covering? Are they truly covering maybe the mask that they're wearing underneath? This mask that they're portraying in a society that's broken, the whatever work you're doing, you're playing a game to fit in, to be rising the ladder, to be number one, to bring back home more money so you can fall back into the same machine. Okay, so we need to strip this whole identity, apart, and the ability to say, okay, where am I truly with self? And that's a hard journey. Very few people that I'm aware of are really getting into the depth of who are you when you look at yourself in the mirror. Okay, are you, the first thing comes out, well, I'm like successful. Well, really? Let's go a little deeper. Okay, in order to go through this ascension process, what is it? It's an ascension process of heart. It's bringing us really back into a truth that we've been avoiding for the most part of our generational trends, the idioms that have been put forward, the programs that have been put forward, and everything has been trying to keep us away from this one moment, to come back to heart. And that's the golden opportunity that we all have as humans. Okay, and I'm just talking about one species, because we're not the only ones here. Gaia is her own essence and everything that she supports and everything that she gives life to, and we're part of that. And this is where it's not just, well, human going through the ascension and I'm going to have a better life. No, it's about coming back to what is the purpose? What are we truly here for? To ravage the earth and burn it out, and then hopefully a spaceship's going to take us to another one and do the same thing all over again? I mean, there are probably some that think like that. In fact, there's quite
60 Minutes in Australia were promoting it last night. They
no,
were
really.
not promoting it like selling tickets, but they were acknowledging that UFOs have been seen in Melbourne and the government has nothing to say about it. They're saying, well, this is UFOs, we can't explain it. NASA did the same thing. So in the story of all of that, they're just drip feeding what is the conspiracy theory to evaluate and discredit a lot of the conspiracy theory just by adding it now into mainstream and everything like that. I don't want to cut you off, but I'm not cutting you off. I'm just
No, you're not.
but the bigger you say things that hit the mark, that absolutely hit the mark of what needs to be negotiated, and the element of humanity is so misconstrued because there's no honesty in it. No honesty. The fight which people are fighting is a fight that they've found themselves in. The people that are protesting around the corner don't even consider the fight around the corner and the protest that's around the corner. They're protesting something else. So the division is completely separated, okay? Completely, like it exists to the majority of what this whole 1%, 2% of this population may be carrying out. There's 1,000 different protests people have.
Yeah.
Ascension is so like out of reach for majority of people to even comprehend. And if it was lesser quantified with the negotiation that it is development under the principle of humanity that actually exercises what the actual true intent of our purpose is, then people would see it in a completely different proportion to an ascension off this planet as opposed to a development of self in a world that develops itself every other stinking day because somebody else has got something new concocted. And sit down and take the moment of stripping yourself whilst you're stripping everything else. And everything else, be it that all of those other things that you may attach yourself to that are of interest now because you have seen a different perception, you then want to be part of something that really doesn't give you any further development to an ascension because it discredits the reason as why this is happening. And I say the reason why this is happening is because of all of the things that we find people are actually putting their space to. And they're limiting their exposure to the truest element of being able to exercise that development of ascension. And you can't fuck it up. You can only prolong it.
Yeah.
And that is the cause and effect of your own actions. If you do not change your narrative to what you consider something that is of grace, because it's grace that is the higher vibration. And I don't mean Grace, the chick that lives in the red brick house down the road. I mean it's grace and gratitude to actually being part of something that has always been there, but always been manhandled and manipulated to be a resource element of finances. It's always been there.
The moment we turned into not even the industrialization, we go back way back in history into the moment where, money became a thing. Before that, we knew what we were doing. We were already doing it. We were already part of it. But then everything shifted. This whole shift of this control and the greed, and we can go down all of the rabbit holes on this. We can go down to the Satanism. We can go down to the Illuminati. We can go down all of these different, like I said, rabbit holes. But where is it in the process of where we are right now? And I think this is where a lot of humanity is not getting the grasp of it, is this essence, this heart movement. And the heart movement doesn't mean you become wishy-washy and soft and, push me underneath the carpet syndrome. No, it's understanding that the heart has a great, great, great power. And to understand that this essence of love also has a great power of something that we've never been taught.
No, we haven't. We haven't. You there? Are you frozen? You must be frozen. I'm still live. It looks like I'm still going live. So we'll go through that. You're completely right. Completely right. This is funny. This is like... Completely right. There you go. There you're back. I was just entertaining those that were still watching. Because it froze and you were like this.
Yeah, it's like, internet connection problems. God only knows what's going on with this tonight. It's funny how some things in energy work at times. And in the movement that we're using energy right now, okay, technology, one is part of it. It's energy. Okay. We're also, emitting our own photonic energy that's coming about us. sometimes there's opposing energies that don't want those messages to get through, or maybe that connection to get through.
Most definitely. And this is a good way to introduce the development of self, because on this occasion, this vibration is of heart. That it is external that's causing this fragmentation might be that of mind, ego, okay, in an individual person. So on that, right, let's do that. At this point in time, what I say is that is lower in a vibration of us being able to keep this kept constant. You have no value here, therefore you should just dissipate away, leave, because your energy can be transmuted into something that's pure. If you are going to be offended by that, see you later. Energy has its own resource, has its own attention, has its own momentum. If we're not controlling that within our own space, then we're just a bumbling momentum ball of energy. There is no understanding of self, of putting yourself into those boundaries, or putting boundaries upon yourself to see where your limits currently are as you are developing, i.e. ascending.
How when we come to this, this essence of this emotional reckoning, let's come into the moment of, where where your journey has gone and where my journey has gone and where it's brought me to. The aspect of this emotional reckoning is what is happening with my emotions. It's taken me some time to get a grasp on exactly, what is the truth of my heart and what is it capable of really doing in many ways. And I've found that by centering myself, by grounding myself, and many people says, well, what do you mean by grounding? Well, Gaia, Earth, she grounds me, and keeping this awareness of her is, it's not being an activist. It's being a realist and being able to see with my own eyes, at everything that's going on. Whether it's about the vaccination, whether it's about the masks, that's one narrative. But it's broader than this, because
Of
there's
course it is.
so
It's
much.
being a fucking peace architect. That's what it is. It's being a fucking peace architect, because everywhere that you arrive, you are architecting peace within what are the limitations of that surroundings that are put upon you. That's I've sat there for years thinking how, who, what, why, what could I possibly bring this as? Because in every interaction, there is an energy-based form. And whoever is dominant is now going to be that part that infiltrates its exposure upon others. It's always been like that in this egotistical realm. That's hence why there's a bully. Okay? Now, this bullying element that has arrived is something that is amplified, because we're now seeing it in the law enforcement. We're now seeing it in Gary's Gone Again. We're now seeing it in there he is. That's okay. You're welcome back, brother. Don't have to shake your head. We're keeping this energy away. Okay, this energy, if you want to take it, it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
We don't give credit to what we can do. The mastery of self, the wizardry of self, the understanding of self. If we're hungry, we'll go eat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But is that hunger pain that we're feeling something that's a food negotiation, or is it something else that we're actually wanting, like we're screaming for? Because there's a hunger that arrives when you step into heart, because heart has never been given the full space of ownership, because it's always been contorted with mind to justify ego and the proportions of that conflict that ego gives out and delivers.
Yep.
If we were to all represent a life of heart in being given all of that emotion that people give upon us and only speak of mind, you die. You would die, because the heart will be then broken, is broken to a place that it's got a fragile voice when it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't think that your heart does not have a voice that is stern and resilient and owns its existence. It's not all happy days, roses, rainbows, butterflies, and sweet sugar and candy. It's not
Well,
that.
a lot of people think, well, guess what? You're just a hippie, Gary. So that it's all about.
Yeah, yeah. He's broken up again. Broken up again. Gary, when you come back, you need to say energy go away. You need to say that, not me. When you come back. But anyway, we're still here. And it's exactly right. It doesn't enter into discussions with negative storylines. I purposely shut it down, switch in positive conversation. Yeah, Sue. And that's development of self. But there comes a point where there is an element where justification needs to be had because those people are hurting themselves. And you see it. They've gone full boundary and they're hurting themselves. And they're only looking for an alternative, another way of perceiving or shifting their perception. Can you see that self is the third person and that we have two others in us, fear and interest, the heart being the interface with the environment, love is interest, fear is many nasty things, greed, hatred, and so forth. Good has nothing but interest, and Satan represents fear. It's very clinically that way. Yeah. Well, to even bring Satan into the element shows me that you have fear within the word of Satan, because Satan is only an energy that you get a choice to whether or not you want to play with.
We've been so programmed by many things, scriptures,
Welcome back.
religions. Yeah, I flipped a network connection, see if that holds better. Okay, so
Before you start, say energy that's causing this disruption. Just go. I don't need you now. You've hiccuped.
all this little stuff that's bothering us, just go away, go away, go away, go away, go away. Okay,
Beautiful.
so somebody said to me, do I believe in demons and do I believe in Satan? And I said yes. And they said, well, you fear them. And I said no. Why? Because I'm not going to allow fear to control me. Definitely, for one. Okay. I've faced enough in my life that says, you know what? If I can face what I've already faced, and I'm going to be 60 years old very soon, everything that's brought me up to this point in life, Satan hasn't got anything on it. Absolutely not. Okay. So in the narrative of this belief system, that hell and Satan and you're sinful and the religions that all circumvent this in the variety of different colors and flavors, it's installing this already a fear. If you're not a good person, well, you're going to go to hell, right? So there's a fear that's already, we're finding out that this manipulation, fear basing, okay? And then we see how governments and other bodies and religious leaders are using this fear-based ideology to keep us docile, to keep us controlled, to keep us, fearful of really opening up the heart and seeing just how powerful the heart is. One thing that Satan, for me, can't do is put out the flame of the heart. Because the flame of the heart is the purity and the truth of love of life, love of evolution, and love of a higher existence. Okay? I'm not going to say just, well, it's about God. No, it's a higher existence. Because it's a place where there is no darkness. We've allowed darkness to install because we've allowed the programs and these narratives to create these feeds and everything else of the rabbit holes of the darkness that is really all about us. So how do we shake that off? To shake it off is really coming to this journey. And this journey of oneness is understanding, who am I? First off. Second off, what do I envision as, love and peace and harmony and a coexistence with all life? Because a majority of humans are stuck just on, human. They're not associating the whole snowball, the whole dominoes effect that we as humans have on everything. And when we can find these, sometimes it's a subtle change. And a subtle change that we will do has a greater impact on the mass. So where again, many are asking me, where do we start? Well, look at what you're doing. First off, what is important for you? Is it
What is to
money?
start? What is to start? Where it's one thing to start. It's to acknowledge that you're either a fuck up or you've been fucked over. I don't care where you come from, whatever you got as a credential or anything, however hard line you have been part of that system, you need to acknowledge that how much it's devastated you in the hindsight of what you now know. And then you've got to realize that you're not going to just run a gauntlet again like a chase of trying to obtain a house, but this time expel a story from the storyline. It doesn't work like that. You can't have you're only putting more division. Somebody said earlier, I think it was Brian, about that self is a third identity. That's very religious, came in the Holy Trinity. And these are the stories that we all get tripped up by because they've all been manipulated. Everything has been manipulated. Can you see that self is the third person? Why is there a third person? Why isn't it the first person?
Fear and
the
interest.
first person being that I know who I am now. I have lived through fear. I have gone through that valley of the shadow of death. Each and every one of us have done that in our own extraordinary arrival into that place and in being here. But in all the fear and all of the intimidation that we've lived through, it has not stopped us from being here. These are the things that people do not quantify as they try and subject themselves to something new. They rationalize with full disclosure, all of those things. What the fuck? Full disclosure? How? What? How? If somebody was told in the religious space that carried a religious claim for their whole life, 5 generations, all being just part of the church, innocent, which millions and millions of people are, because it's only a small amount of people that might be doing this in the first place. Okay? The rest of those people, as soon as they hear that, that is their heart destroyed. That is their heart destroyed because in the confusion of what the world has provided them, what the mind puts into their space, they said, I need faith. And I'm going there every week. I'm going to support that because it purges me, it cleanses me. To a story that takes the faith away from them to hold the resilience of self. So when that story hits, there's so much devastation that's going to happen. You need to forget about everything, every element of every storyline, because none of it is doing anyone any service.
It keeps us disconnected from, now, Brian had said about seeing the third person, seeing yourself as a third person. And I'd like to address a little bit of that too, because I don't see myself as a third person. I see I have a physical body that houses a spirit. Okay. It houses a heart. It houses, a physical entity that is based upon, okay, there's some flesh here, there's some bones, there's lots of water, and there's lots of energy. Okay. Because we emit energy. So to see myself as just as a whole, oneness. And this is the whole purpose of what a lot of my teachings are about: oneness, wholeness. Where am I in the here and now? Where am I connected to? Who am I connected to? What am I seeing? And allowing my heart to make that choice where it always is making the right choice. It's the mind that makes the wrong choice. Okay, we sort of touched a little bit that at the start of the story here is that, the mind is what gets us into the mind fuckery and takes us away from the truth of our heart. Our truth of our heart shows us the intuition. It knows what is right and wrong. It ideally knows what's right and wrong. But it's our mind in the program that says, well, no, I got to do this because that's what I've been told. That's the only way to do it. And from a man's perspective, we can touch a little bit about this too, Adrian, in the sense that, where is the divine masculine in all of this movement and growth and this return to, what is our emotional self? It is not addressing it from a religious perspective. It's not addressing it from any type of a zenful movement other than, who am I? in all simplicity. The one question that very few can truly answer is, who are you? You can tell me about your career. You can tell me about what you own. You can tell me about your wife and your children, your life. But who are you as a human? What is your purpose? Do you understand your purpose? Do you understand the purpose as all of us come together and where this ascension has really truly taken us? It's not the far-fetched stories. We've all heard them, right? We've, in a multitude of different directions of what the ascension is being taught to be or what it's about. But it's a truth, and the essence of it for me is the truth of the spiritual reconnection to my heart. And the essence that my spirituality is now connected to all life. I am who I am, connected to the moment, connected to the presence, connected to, the waterfalls are in the back of me, the birds are going off in the background, and yeah, every once in a while there's an ambulance going around in the city. So the whole aspect of the awareness factor, where many are filled with this mindfulness movement, and then just break it away from the modality and come back to the truth of it. It's the here and now. My choices make a difference. Every action, every reaction that I do as a human makes an impact in my identity, in the space that I'm in, but it also has an impact globally. It's an energy being sent out. That's how energy works. It's endless. There is no end to it. Once it's released, it's gone. It keeps on going and going and going and going and going. So we got a world full of...
It stays with you. It stays with you. As much as it gets stretched out and connected with all of those other vibrations around the planet,
Yes.
you were the instigator of it coming out of your vortex. And this, I'm talking to people that are listening. And the control measure of all of that is that changing of the narrative. I've said this many times in regards to the letting go of the story. And somebody put up that it's Tao. Yeah, definitely. And Buddhist and a lot of religious claims.
Yeah.
But, and Brian was saying that it's a reflection. The third person he's talking about is a reflection of self as he's doing. And in that scenario, yes, definitely. As you look in the mirror, there's the third person. Because you know what that is, because that's a still figure and you can see that, okay, but you're looking through that and you know the wisdom and intuition. The forgetting of everything, the forgiveness of everything is something that doesn't get often get spoken about. The forgiveness of your life in regards to what you may have done, what has happened to you, is ultimately speaking to the third person in which it now exists in that psyche, in that existence and vibration of you, be it a younger version of you before it was manhandled by the system and manipulated. So when you're forgiving you, and you're forgiving the things that you did, and you're forgiving the things that happened to you, the forgiveness of the person that did that to you is difficult. But if you simplify it and say, well, you never knew that this system didn't care about any of us, the person that did what they did to you, that was part of the system that didn't care about what was happening to the people within it. And that's really convoluted to start thinking to that space, because devastation of life, devastation of your own personal life, there is a lot of barriers that allow the restriction of forgiveness. In ascension, all of that's forgotten, because you will not hold that vibration that was tarnished of self in that new realm, in that new storyline, because it's getting stripped away from you the more that you concede that this is where you're going. And I say concede free willingly, to allow the intuitive part of you to just take the stronghold and start to design why you're taking this chance and opportunity. Because the stems, the very detailed stems that are amongst each and every one of us, splinters of fear, of unworthiness, of anxiety, that sit within each of us because of our extraordinary stories are those last residual components that are now causing that grief, that ego versus soul heart importance. I even have it. The more that I include myself with people, the more that residual shows. Because it's the patience in which we have to allow the interaction to take place. If we do not have that interaction, then therefore we have not extinguished that truth in which we are faced with. To talk about somebody's story and what has attracted them to here is the same oneness in what you're trying to see, but in their variation. If you are considering only self now, you have to give time to solely self and not interact at all. If you are out there and you are putting yourself amongst it in the proportions of being an advocate or an inspirer of truth, then you continually have to visit your truth. And if it's causing turmoil within your own existence, you will know, because your erratic sleeping, your behavior, your eating is all part of it. And if nothing's running smoothly, then everything needs to be redesigned. We are constantly evolving. This is what people need to be assessing in all of this. Constantly evolving, like we have when it was okay that a woman stayed home and did all of the housework and everything like that. That's a part of evolution, to see that they have now the same element of respect and level of understanding to be able to do what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. So
You got
in the,
visitors.
yeah, he just in a moment. So just God, he caught me off guard. Yeah, I'm live. Okay. So happens.
That's all right. You scared you.
Yeah, it caught me off a little bit off guard. I said, "Oh, okay, boom." So coming back to something, and
Something.
many things. Okay, one of the things that I find with a great deal of clients that I deal with is that there are always this question of, how do I address this emotional self? And they've tried many things. They've tried, the pill route. They've tried the doctor routes. They've tried the psychologist routes. They've tried all of this. Yet the simplicity of it, is there something from your perspective, Adrian, that there is a simplistic way to say, you know what, try this?
To what? To constantly come back to the moment?
Not just
To a
come
simple
back to, no, to come back to the understanding of the emotional self. What is the power of the emotional self?
okay. Yeah. Well, look, there's heaps of ways, but the most honest way is to say that I'm not searching. I do not need to search. I respect that I am thinking about this at this point in time, because this is something that is just at my core. So I simply have to just appreciate that this is something that I do not need to search for. It will arrive when I give it the respect of already existing within me. Because then you're only limiting by putting yourself and exposing yourself to things that might not be in your design. There's many ways to accomplish finding that procurement of self.
Mhm.
To justify it in one action is only to quantify that it actually is within you as you are searching for it. To stop your moment, to then integrate with what you've got, with the understanding of what will arrive in silence, of, oh, look at that bird, to then find, okay, if I see the simplicity of design, I can then detoxify what my design is. And it's all having belief, trust that what you're going through is the reason why you are choosing to do it. Nobody else, just you.
So
That's
we
it.
we can say that an aspect of that address, again, the addressment of coming back to the connection of self. Okay, Brian has mentioned it. I've seen some of the comments that he was making. It was a beautiful comments, Brian, by the way, and thank you very much for sharing that. Uh, it opens up a whole other perspective of seeing, your higher self. What is the purpose of your higher self? It doesn't mean that I'm floating above in some cosmic connection. It means that I'm actually connected into this power that I have from within my heart, my spirit, and yes, even my mind. Because now it's not my mind that's controlling me anymore. It's my heart that's speaking. And so if I do things and speak things with heart and truth, then I still will make my mistakes. And it's to be able to say, look, it's all right to make a mistake, but it's also all right to not repeat the same mistake. So if we've learned from all of what we've led us up to right now, where we are in the world, where we are with humans, where we are in this consumerized, mind-boggling, we can go into a whole bunch of words on that one. We'll get thrown off the air for it, okay? But how do we bring people to this opening to see this, okay? Or are you, as an example, like I am like this? There's two ways that I do this. One, I'm wholeheartedly going to take you and bring you into this curated heart space and sit you right down and see where you are. And the other is like, okay, no, you got to do your process. So
Well,
you're in,
there's homework on anybody.
of
Everybody's
course.
got, that's finding the trust to actually have the belief that you can do it. It's like getting off booze or getting off drugs or anything like that. The willpower still needs to exist within that design.
So is
But,
it trust or is it faith?
well, it's the same thing, isn't it? Faith, in faith, you're trusting that what the story being told to you is true. In
Okay.
trust, in trust, you have the faith that what you're doing is right. Same shit, same shit. Faith within self needs to happen, obviously, but trust then takes the religious element out of it. Not that there's been a religious element brought into it, but faith has a huge proportion of that word's ownership. Yeah? In the
Okay.
proportions of what we live amongst. If we trust what we do, we can then transmute faith to be the very same identity of us representing the God-like element, which is the gift of divinity. Both the same. Trust of self, to not exploit the faith of what you assume to be right. That's the same thing. The same
So
thing. You're trusting the faith what you have. Yeah, go on, sir.
question. What brought you, when did you come into this awakening phase? What point in your life brought you into this awakening phase? I don't like using the word awoke because one means that I've awoken and the process is over. So the awakening phase, where did this begin with you, Adrian? And while you're talking about that, I'm listening. I'm going to put some wood on the fire. Okay. So,
Okay. Okay.
and I get to take these buds out of my ears. Ah.
Yeah. I suppose I think let's not use the awakening word at all, and let's just call it the when did you see your reflection? And when I seen my reflection to what I had created as opposed to what I'd been left with, some funky shit happened that the universe obviously put in my space because I was able to handle, and then sat and entertained that. Didn't speak about it, entertained it. A lot of the story I didn't even know because I didn't need to know in regards to how deep the atrocities go. So it's easy to walk away from it when you never really knew about it at all. So everybody has it throughout the day. Everybody has the opportunity, that ability to see their reflection, to see whether or not they would see themselves in the truest vibration. And that's part of the measure. That's part of the journey. It's not weaknesses. It's just strengths that are undeveloped. Everything is negotiable because every experience is unique to the individual that's bringing. Having patience in the trust that everything is equal, everything is love, is what it's
There we
about.
there we
That's
go.
cool. So everything that was like having the ability to see that everything is of trust and love. You slow things down. With the debacles that are happening because of lack of patience, lack of strategy, lack of gameplay, as well as knowing what we'd done previously through our fathers, grandfathers, mothers, grandmothers, aunties, uncles, in the way that we established how we would get our voice heard. That worked to the proportions of what they limited in the giving back part of the story. And I talk about the strikes and protests and all of that of former years. And only did they ever dangle a carrot back out to say, okay, well, we'll give you this part, not 12/8 of it. We'll give you this part. So nothing would change in respect to that, given where we are now. The only thing that's changed is the aptitude of self in the rationalization of how turmoil has been chaotic in every one of our upbringings. Even you can't dismiss that. Like storylines have always been attached to places of interest, like friends, family, workplaces. There's always been conflict, and it's always been as a result of unfairness. And the unfairness, be it the deliverer of all of that, of their storyline. I don't see why it's so hard to forget what really was a sad moment. And you can say that whole moment had a little bit of joy, but predominantly there's been a lot of sadness because that is the overarching energy that was abundant and still is abundant in the storyline that they had created. So people say, I'm tired, I want change. If you're tired, you want change. Don't spend 8 hours on Facebook looking up all of those stories. Don't do that. You're only causing detriment to yourself.
Well, you're feeding the same story again.
Correct.
You're feeding the negative. So, people say we want change. Well, again, if you want change, it starts with self. So, do something about it. And there's a lot of things that can be done in a peaceful mannerism. It doesn't have to be in this, said like a protesting movement, hanging up, bringing up your flags, bringing up your signs, and all of the animosity that's created within that narrative. It is this ability to really say, okay, if I want it to be better, then it has to start with me. It's the only way. It's not going to be something that's going to happen by waiting for some politician. Okay, all around the world, we're seeing what's happened. The politicians aren't doing anything except spending money and, doing a whole bunch of other things that don't make any sense. And everything else that's involved in behind the scenes with them. It's we the peoples that have this beautiful power at hand. The ability to recreate, the ability to continue with innovation, but look at it from a mannerism of, how do we do this and coming together where we're going to have a better world for not just you and I, Adrian, but, for the children that are upcoming into this and the ones that are being born into, I look at it, sometimes I'm wondering, like, all the technology around them, and they're not learning about Earth. They're not learning about breath. They're not learning about, the importance of the life around us. And the same old narrative is still being milked. Even though there's you and I and other movements that are trying to make change and are in this movement of change, it's still happening. So,
of course, it's going to happen. It's going to happen as it's meant to happen. Like, I see that what we speak of, what we are endorsing in regards to the truth of what a person needs to, I suppose, adjust their perception to within the element of love and the presence of the moment. That there's still a threshold, there's still a barrier of anger that needs to be introduced in regards to those that are waking with that anger. We've arrived on the basis of knowing that we've got some time up our sleeve to prepare. Preparing is what I see that this is, in regards to being able to topically speak about certain elements that people need to start to introduce into their development. And
What
with
is
that,
what is some of the things that you were saying that we as peoples need to reintroduce into this development scheme? Okay, you know, is there one element that you can pull out of it and say, here's something we can start with? Bang.
Yeah, definitely. What you know, you don't know. What you deem that you consider as knowledge is useless. If you do not breathe before you speak, you are only creating a space of contempt in a vibration that will not be condoned. Creating a plausible element that is acceptable to rant and rave, you're doing nothing to yourself.
True.
You're still looking at the soapbox trying to crawl up there and preach the news. This isn't that part of the game. Because they're just like scarecrows in the paddock. And the crows, you see what happens, they get attracted to it and they just sit all around it. They're put in place to stop the progression of self. While that progression, which is felt, is still within that element of unworthiness and fear, because they're talking about, hell no, we won't go, what the hell's going on, whatever that may be. All justified. But it's a very late stage in the game to introduce that element and say that you're a woke person. And then looking at who is affected with all of this in the interests of fairness. There's large corporations that have been affected because of the storyline placed on by pharmaceutical that maybe didn't get the memo, but are of equal justification in the money orientation, that need to put things in place so they don't miss out that opportunity. That's why you'll see people that will get up and say, well, I will do this on this given day so the people of my faith will arrive in the freedom of being able to do that. And all along, they're not providing the element of faith necessary for the person to truly get through this.
Just as you mentioned that, something that comes to mind, and a good friend of mine I was talking to recently, is that he was put into a situation of being forced to take the vaccine. So we're going to touch a little bit of this story, okay? And, also do the testing. And he was in a very, very lucrative, high-paying job, working in the oil fields, for an example. And when they working in oil fields. And he actually walked off the job. He says, no way. He says, there's no way he's going to allow this system, this fear-mongering, to force him into a change. So he walked away from a very lucrative job, because there was no way that he was going to allow himself to be vaccinated. And the proceeding of elements that came forward, because, family members and others and everything else, the conflict that he put himself into. And he asked me, he says, what should I do? And I said, you followed your heart. Your heart spoke and said there was no way that you were going to allow that to happen to you, because you're listening to yourself, you're listening to your freedom, and nobody has the right to say, well, that's right or that's wrong, as long as what you've done isn't harmful to another. And I know that's going to open up a little bit of a Pandora's box, because some people believe that if we're not vaccinated, we're going to actually harm other people because we're carrying something, and that's a whole.
That's ridiculous. What the fuck, man?
Yeah.
That's stupid. That's the whole analytics of science.
Yep.
We've got nothing to do with science. This isn't nothing to do with science, because science doesn't speak truth about the heart and what the heart is able to accomplish
Oh,
in
very.
regard to being the representation of a human being. So anything that comes in regards to that is completely null and void. And look,
So we just had somebody else made a comment here and said, and thank you for saying that. And I'm glad you're doing that. And it's not saying I'm an anti-vaxxer. I'm saying you've made the choice for you, and your choice stays strong to it. Okay. And
correct.
I know this isn't going to be an easy going through, because this is exactly what they want. Like the United States has now got a lottery going on. Have you heard this one? I know we've opened up Pandora's box, but they've got $1 million lottery putting out for the people. So you go get yourself vaccinated and you got a chance of winning $1 million and some odd dollars.
Yeah, I know. It's an absolute joke. And this is the highlights reel, ladies and gentlemen. This is like the blooper reel of humanity that's playing out now. And if you can look at it at that, then the argument just is like, oh, wow, okay. It's like Days of Our Lives, Bold and the Beautiful. The cause and effect is not of your concern, because you get to walk away scot-free. The enforcement is what the intimidation that they will do. Yeah. They do not control everything. They're playing out in the proportions of what their story is allowed to limit them to at this point in time. Okay? And it's been 6 months that we're into this year. How much has the storyline changed? Hasn't changed at all. Nope. It has not changed at all. The vaccines are just starting to roll out over the last 2 to 3 months. Exactly what they said, but 2 to 3 months actually earlier than when they were saying in January, February. So there's the delay, but there's the pigeonhole in which they've all got us. And the moment that you can break free from that to say, well, you know what, I don't like the feed that this farmer's given me anymore. And the beautiful people that are stepping away from their roles and their jobs. I say with that, don't let money be the huge element of confusion that sits at the forefront with anybody changing their professional job. Because the more that you sit in the space and understand why you did this, the more that you will intuitively know that you have got everything that you require. The elements of money that people think that they need is not true. It's not true. The money that people actually think they owe, that's part of that belief system that you need to break from.
It's totally so out of proportion, it's not even funny. Okay. And I won't go into the personal stories as much as I'd like to, because there's things that can be said about that. But in the essence of where money is and what we believe it to be and what we're using it for is just totally, I can't even find a word for it. Okay, other than it separates us from truth of what we have the capacity to be, because we're allowing our
video arcade, dude. It's like a video arcade. I'm just going to fill this up. I'll put it myself on.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. So, you know, I walked away from a jump 15 years old. So, this whole aspect of this consumerized world that we're in and what it's done to us, not just what it's done to humans. It's about what it's done to this beautiful planet, Gaia, that we walk upon, Mother Earth. Everything that we are doing today has some sort of impact. Don't think that, you know, your little bit here isn't having an impact, because there's 7 some odd billion people on the face of this earth. They're doing somewhat the same thing. So a lot of things need to be looked at. A lot of things need to be changed. We have to look at what is the purpose that we have here as humans. You know what? I look at myself as a human and I say, I'm a caretaker, I'm a curator. I look after what I can with my space. I'm trying to do better choices. I'm trying to, you know, choose wisely from the foods that are being offered, because there's a lot of foods that are being offered that are not really food. They're GMOs, they're modified, they got all sorts of trace chemicals in them because of the way they're being farmed, and this is what we're eating. There's so many things, okay, that if we don't start at the very basics, the very basics is exactly, if you're going to be still part of this consumerism program, then choose wisely what you're buying. Your foods, your clothes, where you shop, all of this. If you're going to be part of this broken system, then at least make better choices. Somebody said that we can't stop just that product line. Well, sure we can. Everybody in the world looked at the truth of what Red Bull was as a product and what it's doing to people. It's not a healthy drink. So why should it be being sold? We're selling consumerism based upon addictive structures. Look, the companies know what's going to addict you. They know by putting chemicals and what's going into. They know what McDonald's is putting in their French fries and all the stuff that you keep on going buying and spending your money on. So it starts someplace, and it starts at the basics. And the basics is, if you're going to be part of this money narrative, then choose wisely where you're putting your money. Simple. And we can change. You know, the fast food industry exists because it created an addictive substance. I'm not saying all fast foods are bad for you, but the major chains are. There's no healthy food, no matter what marketing blurb they're going to turn around and make you believe. It's BS, because it just is. Look at the truths. Open your eyes and do your own investigations. Okay, just don't believe what the person selling to you is a good thing. And it starts with all of this. And so many people are caught up with the aspect of money, 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 and more money. Okay, and they feel that that's going to make them happy, so that they can buy the bigger home and buy the fancier car and, you know, buy the jewelry and follow the Kardashians and get the Botox and all of this stuff, so that they can be somebody they're not. Because at your last breath, do you take it with you? Absolutely not. So if I look at where I am and the purpose of my essence as a human, my essence as a human is to show as much kindness as I can, because you know what? Kindness makes me smile. Okay? If I'm generous, it makes me smile. If somebody takes advantage of me, well, it doesn't make me smile, but at least I know I gave out of generosity of heart. So I have no regrets and I have no resentments. I do have questions at times. You know, it's like, really? You scratch your head a little bit. But it doesn't hold me back into saying what has already been done, that I'm going to hold on to it. I don't. I keep myself in this moment. And this allows me to see better with heart, be with my heart. And for many men out there, we're fighting with this. We're fighting with the essence of heart. We're fighting with our vulnerabilities. We're fighting with our sensitivities. We're in a world that's all upside down. We don't even know what it is and how to act as a man today because of all the movements that are out there, all of the protests that are out there. It's like, you know, where do we stand as men? Okay, where do you put your essence as a man? Can you still be a gentleman today without being crucified? You know, it's like many times you can. You can open up the door, it's good, and then you open up the door for somebody and look at you and say, what do you want? Well, I don't want anything. I'm just opening a door for you. Skills that have long been taken away from us. You know, men, if we come to grasp this emotional power that we have within us, it'll allow us to have a better emotional conversation with a lady friend or a person of the opposite sex. Because now we can emotionally engage and see that we're emotionally connected, that all hearts are connected. We're connected by the energy it carries and it emits. We're connected by the energy that is carried by the hearts of all other species, aves and mammals and the flora, to all of it. And we're so short-sighted in the sense that we're not seeing the whole picture. We're only thinking about the narrative to get things back to normal so I can continue my way of life and buy more things and, you know, go to the restaurants and the fancy trips and all this sort of thing, when It's so simple.
You just answered how much time we've got left. You just answered how much time it's going to take. Because everything that you said, all of those elements of that back to normal is where people deem that they need to be. That was never normal before they locked it down. That was never normal. And for a man to find what a man is, when has a man ever truly been a man? When has a man ever truly been that of a full oneness, of a divinity of man?
I
You'd
don't
have to go
think
to the indigenous cultures. You'd have to go to the indigenous cultures and the remote cultures of the Asias and the South Americas to find
Yep,
anything that would be conclusive there.
very true.
Because what we've got is a really third person identity, as Brian said, that the male demographic, be it the third person. Yeah, because there is no construct for the male in this life. In this storyline, the male was never to prevail because of the way that it's been orchestrated by the system in how it's displayed. And any time that a man has been affluent or been put into a place where he was a leader that went against the regime or the system, persecution. Either that in the condemning or the storyline and manipulation of his credibility. So in any point, a man really doesn't know what a man is unless a man has a conflict behind him that makes him into that Spartan, into that gladiator. They're the ones that people are aspiring to be. No one wants to be the freaking philosopher. Nobody wants to be the instigator of a narrative that is lesser condemning to the population that is it.
Well, that topic alone, that comment alone, the gladiator, opens up a whole Pandora's box into this culture of body shaming and what they believe that a man should look like and what they believe that a woman should look like. I mean, there's so much mind fuckery that has gone on that says, in order for me to be a man, I got to have the perfect abs, I got to have the dad body, I got to have this, I got to have that, that's true. I thought no, being a man is to be able to go ahead.
All fluff. It's just all fluff. It's just that what it is. It's to create a different division of identity again. Yeah, yep. Because like to talk about all of that, it's only to instigate people witnessing it in their own self that they are going through that turmoil of finding self. Because with all of this, gyms have closed and the whole endorsement of wellness through that gym orientation has been put into place so around the world. So you've got all of that element of support from all of those people that are going through that. Now, that's only one part of the program. And I'm talking about that whole MMA, and I'm talking about the gym owners that I've seen around the world that have refused and opened their gym, all for good reason, because it comes under wellness.
Yep.
But there's an element within that creates anger as it's like, push harder, push harder. They're not tiptoe through the tulips. They're not singing those loud songs, pumping weights. There's that anger, aggression that's attached to it. And that's always been that gladiator, sportsman orientation of jock and all of those things. And that has always played a major role in what society deems fit, deems suitable. So when the feet of the jocks are being stepped on, the only interaction afterwards is the jocks to turn around and push forward. That's what we're facing now. People aren't looking at the simplicity of change, be it I don't care about that bullshit story anymore because something else is happening. I am of interest there. That's all you need to conclude to.
True. When I look at it, I grew up in a small southern town where really there was only two things to do. You either were a sports jock or you got into trouble. You one or the other. Okay. So I got into a lot of trouble as a
Yeah.
youth. Okay. It was never something that it was a preoccupation. I mean, I play lots of sports. I love sports. I'm a kayakist. I like hiking. I like biking. I like all of this. But it was never a point for me to, build myself into something that, for me was a waste of time. And this is my own personal choice. I mean, I admire somebody that has devotion to, doing bodybuilding and so on. But it shouldn't be that of, this is what the body of the human is to be, or the body of a man is to be. It's like, excuse me, that is not the point. The point of me being a man is the ability that, can I be supportive? One, can I have conversation? Two, can I show my strength when I need to? But can I also be tender and kind and generous and not be of an aggressive nature? This whole narrative of sometimes of the sports element has turned into a series of aggression. If we look at the fans and when they come together when the football's being done in the United Kingdom, I mean, they kill each other. It's like, why? The gladiator sports, feed the anger, feed the fear, which is exactly what the darkness, if we want to go into a narrative, is exactly what that side of the other side of light wants us to be in this aggression, wants us to be in the quarrels and the fighting and the strengths and so on, because it's exactly what we're doing around the world. The world, is showing us that countries are fighting against each other for no reason because of some politic that, either wants what that country has or feels that he has to meddle in that problem. When if we shake all of the politics away and the peoples look at what do we all want as peoples, I think no matter what part of the world, whether it's in, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in China, people as a whole there's this essence of trying to find peace and harmony and heart. But we're in a world that's got this all pulled away. Nobody's teaching this. Nobody's showing this. We're only showing, what the narratives of the same stories are. I I don't even turn the television on. I bet it's still filled with the same garbage. Okay, it's about this basic buy and sell, and the buy is go out and spend your money, and the sell part is sell myself to turn around and be able to buy. And there's a lot of this that circumvents around this whole separation where the program has got us hooked into. So we're hooked into a pharmaceutical culture. We're hooked into a drug culture, which is not saying there's nothing wrong with smoking marijuana, okay? But it's how it's being used sometimes, okay? In areas where it's become legalized, it's out of proportion.
Yeah, well, you're having a conversation with components within that aren't deemed credible in our existence on this planet to negotiate on this pathway of what we're trying to accomplish in the
True.
development to ascension. So the whole pharmaceutical element, yeah. The whole religious element, yeah. The whole governmental element, yeah. The whole media element, yeah. Every part of those four components be completely stripped out of the existence of what we talk about, the world changes in an instant.
Yes.
In an
Now,
absolute instant.
bingo. So four narratives, four issues, four narratives that need to be changed. And it's not to need to be changed. It's like end of story.
Forgotten. That's it. You've had your time, fuckers. Fuck off now. Your big Pope house? Wow, that's cool. How many bedrooms are there? Oh, wow, excellent. How many homeless are there? Oh, cool, we've just found homes for them. That's the simplicity of all of this. The vision that's being created, even by those that are speaking to this level now, even those that are speaking in this level of understanding, there is still those that are really untouchable. Yeah. And you don't even get to have a conversation with them because they've already typecast you as something that they see you as. Then I just see that as your flaw within your game, and everybody else will see that. We've got to just start watching who's inciting and who's inspiring.
I like Brian just said something. I want to question him on this one. It says Bugs Bunny is what the man is. He's the archetype. Bugs Bunny. I'm trying to
Bugs
figure that one
Bunny
out.
is what the man is. He's the archetype. Bugs Bunny is what the man is. He's the archetype. Okay, so I think he's talking about from a Looney Tunes perspective. Bugs Bunny was always that one that created the irrational thing. Like, what's up, Doc? Why are you worrying about that? Yeah, I turned left here at Albuquerque to find myself in this disruption. The half-glass full bloke that was the blow-in. I seen Bugs Bunny as that. I seen Daffy Duck as the ego mind going. So that's how I seen that. Is that what Brian's trying to say?
I think I'm following what you just said to sort of led into the explanation of that, and I can see that in many ways, and in the way that the story still is being played out today. Okay, and this is again coming back to what do we do as individuals? Like I know what you're doing as an individual. I know what I'm doing as an individual, and how it's having an effect on the locals, and it's gathering more and more and more momentum. And it's going to invoke this change, but is it going to be fast enough? Maybe that's where I am with this. Is it going to be fast enough?
Fucking hell, get some patience, man. Jesus, it's going to be okay, because whilst their storyline is still the cause and effect of a lot of people's movement. Mr. Cromwell, Bugs Bunny is gay. Oh, don't say that. That's not. I still love him anyway. It's okay.
Well,
That's
you know
why
what? Gay is okay. You know what? You know
yeah.
what gay is? Gay is joy. So if Bugs Bunny is a joyous character, which I always saw him as a joyous character, then yeah, we can say he's gay because he's joyous.
Of course. Yeah.
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 Come back to the real word. See, this is something else that needs to be changed as well, you know, Adrian, because we've taken beautiful words and turned them into something that is no longer the truth of what that originating word was. Gay in Greek is joy, gaiety is joyous. Gaia comes from the word gay. So gaiety is this essence of joy. Okay? It has nothing to do with being homosexual. It has nothing to do with being bisexual. It has nothing to do with any of that story.
It doesn't.
It has.
It doesn't. And that's why our language is so putrid.
It's bastardized.
So absolutely putrid, because it is that continual evolution of the language that has allowed the division of humanity to take place because of labels. And words are just labels. And we've talked about a lot today, and it all stems to the willingness to forgive and forget. And the forgetting element is something that people don't want to forget. But you don't literally forget it. It is the transmutation of the energy that's associated to the thought of it being there, as opposed to being part of the story now. That is the forgetting element. But if I'm to say all the time, well, forget about this, and I say instead of that, I go, transmute this, people go, what the fuck is transmute? How the fuck? So again, with the ascension, it's development of self.
Yeah.
The betterment of self. The ability to breathe, and within that breath, know that that moment made a change. And it's the incremental changes. Yeah. It's the incremental changes that you can make that summarize what you're doing and then escalate it to a point that you're now seeing what you've created through manifestation and through being part of the game and the strategy.
Very true. Very true. If in parting, as we come towards the end of this one, and this run for this actually Sunday, it should have been yesterday, but I was just burnt. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have I needed time. You know what? Honestly, I just needed time to center, because I've been scattered in a bunch of different directions, and it took me some time to just ground myself. And
Exactly.
so I apologize for that mishap yesterday. But I'm very happy we had this opportunity to again connect once again through the peace movement, through the peace, the architecture of peace, this movement of the divinity of the South, this essence of oneness, and everything that we're trying to show in a world that's broken, but in a world that is not as broken as maybe what we think it is, because there's movement that is happening underneath with what you're doing, with what I'm doing, and what many others around the world are doing by bringing us more together and helping people unravel the garbage. Okay, and that's why we talk about what's raw and what's real, and keeping it into this moment. So in passing to end this segment, what would you like to say to everybody going forward until we get to next week?
Well, okay. You opened a good can of worms. In a in a world that's broken, it doesn't really mean that your story is. And your story only needs to be instigated by you, nobody else. So, in the preparation of finding self, you can admit you're broken or you're not, but it doesn't mean that you need to fix yourself. You only need to shift from what was holding you back from seeing what you see now. And that shift is to admit that you're going to forget a lot of things and be happy and joyful that that's arriving, because what you forget lays place for the intuitive to arrive, therefore creating a stable platform for you to exist.
You're a beautiful man, Adrian.
We all are. Everything's perfect. Everything's in the space of where it needs to be. The contradiction of what life is what we need to rationalize within our own self. The conflict that we have is a large part of the story that we tell ourselves each day. When you can actually blend that, everything's golden. Everything is everything is of every breath, and a breath lasts as long as you want it to.
Couldn't have said it better. I really couldn't have said it better. In passing, as everybody that's joined in tonight, thank you very much for joining us for one off, listening us rant back and forth, Adrian and I. And one of the greatest pleasures I have is this ability to have these in-depth, open communications. And don't take that we haven't seen your comments, because I go back, I look at everybody's comments, I respond where I can respond. Adrian will do the same thing as well. And if you have any questions for us, please, throw them at us. Believe me, I'm sure we've got some good answers for you. And if not, we'll find some good answers. But in passing, in my beginning of going into the new week that's about to begin, and in many parts of the world it's the same, and others you're already in your Mondays, okay, don't look at the time. If I could give you a little bit of advice until next Saturday, okay, is that don't focus on the time part of things. Focus on the moment. Focus on where you are in breath, where you are in understanding, and where you are when you need help. Because if you need help, please do reach out. And don't worry about saying, well, you're being bothersome. No, you're not alone. You're not alone in the story of the changes that are going forward. You're not alone in the stories of the things we're seeing. And if you think you saw a UFO, you probably did. Okay, because we're probably going to see more of them, and much more. And many things are coming forward that, may be scary at times. And feel free to don't let the fear grab you. If you need to, reach out to me, reach out to Adrian, reach out to anybody in the Love Virus scoop, and just say, you know what? I need some advice. And I'm sure there's a packet of people that are willing to come forward and share something with you in story. Because story is where we are. We're creating a new story here. And we have this golden opportunity within our hands. So look at what you have in your hands, not with what is on the side of the street on the other side. Be with you, be connected with you, be connected with your friends and your families. Don't let the fear separate you. Please don't let the fear separate you. Reach to your heart and hear what has to be said. Stop fighting. It's about time. Okay. And Adrian, I got to get myself over to Australia somehow. I don't know how.
Don't rush. Don't rush. When I come over, I'll bring you back on the jet. That'll be okay. That'll
Oh,
be okay.
interesting. Okay. Interesting
Yeah,
story.
we play it in the proportions of what we can create within silence. I will
Yeah.
just say fear, forever entertaining alternative reality.
I like that.
Okay.
I got a new part of the story of the hashtags to start using as well. Now, one other thing before we go, everybody, there is less than 24 hours less, okay? Or actually, there's one more day till midnight tomorrow to make a bid on this beautiful piece of handcrafted jewelry that is being sold to support the peace architecture. Currently, Karina has placed a bid at 250 US dollars. So I will make a post very shortly to re-show this piece of jewelry. So if you wish to bid on it, you got about another day or so to do so. And then the highest bidder will be gifted a beautiful, beautiful handcrafted piece of jewelry that originates with its original stones from Australia. They were gifted to me by Donna Hooper. And it's my way of saying thank you, and also my way of thanking Adrian and welcoming me into this peace architecture movement and doing my part where I can to continue on this new architectural movement of more peace, more connection, more unity, more love. Because love is letting others voluntarily evolve. And the moment we realize that, the moment we'll be more unified. So for this, my Sunday, I was going to say Saturday, okay,
Monday.
and your Monday, okay, lots of love, lots of peace. Don't forget you're not alone, and namaste. We'll see you all real soon, well, in another week or so, okay? So
Yeah. Ciao.